Today we continue our D&D modular city by adding in some city walls that have been magnetized for easy modularity. So the main portion of our build today is going to be using this. This is some, I don't know what exact type of foam it is. I get it from Lowe's. You can also find it at like Home Depot or hardware stores or home improvement stores. It's basically just a piece of foam. I think it's XPS foam. I buy it in a 2-foot by 2-foot sheet for like $8, and it's really useful for a whole lot of different builds. So I've cut this section to be 6 inches wide, and I'm just going to start trimming off a few blocks that are about 5 or so inches tall. Now I'm using a ruler to try and get as straight of a cut as possible, and I'm just doing a few passes with a utility knife to get as clean a cut as I possibly can. Then using a ruler, I mark out a simple set of lines, and these are going to be our bricks. So using the utility knife, I lower the blade length to as short as possible, and then just score a few shallow lines into the face of the foam. Then lining it up with the matte grid on my desk, I carve in a few more lines alternating every row just to make some fairly simple bricks. Now these ended up being about 1/2 inch tall by 1 inch wide. I wanted some fairly large bricks to kind of look like massive stone blocks that have been used to make the city wall. Then using a pencil, I exaggerate all of the lines to kind of deepen the grooves and make them a little bit more noticeable. Alright, so that is really quick to do, and then I did the same thing on the sides to kind of give it a full wraparound, just to make sure that the same brick pattern was visible no matter which direction you looked at it. And again, exaggerate it with a pencil. A lot of people use ballpoint pens, but for some reason I find that it tears up this foam a little bit too easily, so I start with a pencil and then do the pen off camera just to help exaggerate things more. Now, I made this, I call it a texture plate. I made it out of some aquarium stones that I glued down to a wooden block, and I used that to kind of create some deep texture gouges into the foam, and then follow it up with a wadded up ball of tin foil just to kind of give a little bit more uniform texture across the entire piece. And now I'm going to seal in the foam just to make it a little bit more durable and a little less likely to become damaged during gameplay. This is just a simple 50-50 mix of some black paint and some Mod Podge. So it's nothing really fancy. I'm just trying to get it as deep into all of the lines as possible to kind of seal everything in and prevent any damage or wear and tear. So next up we're going to add our magnets, and I really should have done this before sealing everything in, but oh well. So using a roofing nail, I'm just going to kind of make an indentation where the magnet and a thumbtack are going to go. Now the idea for this is I'm going to recess them in so that they have as little protrusion as possible. Now the idea I had was to alternate the placement of the magnet and the thumbtack. So if the magnet's on the bottom on one side of the wall, it's going to be on the top on the other side. This will ensure that I never have to worry about the magnets not lining up with the tack on the next wall in the sequence. So as you can see here, I didn't really create a deep enough depression for the magnets, so it just kind of stuck out a little bit. And then I just kind of coat the whole thing with a little bit of hot glue. So here I've got a couple of magnetized sections, and you can see they click together quite nicely, and while they're not perfect, they will hold together during gameplay, and I won't really have to worry about them coming apart. Alright, so now let's go ahead and paint the walls. So I'm starting off with just a pretty simple overbrush with some Artist Loft Gray. This is going to kind of coat the highest levels of the piece and really maintain the darker sections from the grout lines and things like that. And it's also going to cover up the magnet and the thumbtack just a little, but they're still going to be visible, which ended up being kind of nice. Then I'm doing a kind of heavy dry brush with some neutral gray. This is going to pick up all of the highlights and just kind of give it a little bit more of a rocky stone texture. Now, as you can see, the magnet and the thumbtack are a little bit more visible than you would originally think, but that actually works out nicely to kind of help line things up once everything is finished. And now, using a downward dry brushing motion, I'm going to do a light coating of some warm gray from Master's Touch. This is going to give the entire piece a little bit more of a warm appearance and make it look a little bit less harsh and give it kind of a nice, inviting feel. Alright, so now we need to make our walkways. So we're going to start by making a little simple platform, and I'm using some hot glue and some popsicle sticks to do this. I need each section to be about 2 inches wide and as close to 6 inches long as possible. Now, popsicle sticks are a little imperfect, so they don't all quite end up being 6 inches long, but that's okay. We can kind of make that work. So once we've got our sections done, I pry it off of the mat, clean up as much of the glue as possible, and as you can see, it lines up reasonably well with the top of our wall. So I want this to sit kind of centered on the top of the wall, so I'm just going to use my mat and do a simple little line, and then using some barbecue skewers, I'm going to place these on the bottom. And this is just going to be a little bit of a guide to make sure that I can line everything up correctly on the top of the wall when I attach everything. And this is also going to give some extra support for the walkway to make sure nothing kind of breaks apart while I'm working on it. Alright, so next I use a little bit of wood glue and some hot glue to kind of tack it down, but these are just a couple of little supports that are going to be for the guardrails that I'm going to craft, and the hot glue will kind of hold everything in place while the wood glue dries. And these are again made with a couple of barbecue skewers. Alright, once everything is fully dried, I took a shop knife and just kind of cleaned up the edges by trimming away any excess and making sure everything lined up flush. Now, if you happen to do this, make sure you're using a good knife for it and be very careful that you don't cut your thumb. So now to make the guardrails, I'm going to make a kind of alternating pattern. Again, I need this to be about 6 inches long, so I'm going to go one section at the very end that's tall, and then a couple of short sections, then a couple tall sections, a couple short sections, and I'm just going to keep alternating that. The tall sections are 1.5 inches tall, and the short sections are 1 inch tall. This will give a couple of areas where guards or adventurers or even villains can kind of peek over the walls and look down on the city or outside the city and have some kind of cover and stealth advantages. And then to attach it, I'm going to use the same method of a little bit of wood glue and then some hot glue to tack it down and hold it in place while the wood glue dries. Alright, so once that has fully dried, we can go ahead and get them painted. So the first thing I did was I took it outside and coated it with some Krylon Flat Brown from their camouflage selection. And then I did a pretty quick and simple light overbrushing, kind of a light to medium overbrush actually, of some raw sienna, just to give it that, processed wood appearance that I've kind of grown to love in painting up wood sections like this. Now, some of these sections I probably should have painted before attaching them, because it was a little bit interesting to paint the inside of the walkway here. I ended up going a little bit heavier with the paints than I had originally wanted. And once that's dried, I took a little bit of warm gray and did a light to medium dry brush over the entire surface just to give it a nice aged, weathered appearance. Since these walls are going to be exterior only, I really wanted them to kind of show some wear and tear and some rough edges to them. Alright, so now we need to assemble everything together. So first thing we're going to do is attach our walkway to the top of the wall. And I made some of these little supports that are going to go on the bottom once it's been attached. So to put the wall together with the walkway, it's just a simple application of some hot glue. Make sure everything is lined up while we still have some malleability with the hot glue. And now for these little support columns, I'm just going to tack them into place at roughly even spacing. And this is not really anything supportive, it's more decorative than anything else, but it really kind of gives a little bit of extra something to the walls to make sure it's not just a plain wall with a wooden walkway that kind of looks a little exaggerated. And the supports are nothing special, they're just a couple pieces of barbecue skewer that I glued together and then painted the same way as the walkway. Now, it's a little top heavy, so in order to fix that, I made a couple of these. These are just a couple of little triangles of foam, which I scribed and textured the same as the wall itself, but a slightly smaller grid. Now I'm going to glue them into place about 1.5 inches in from either end with a little bit of hot glue. And to do it, I'm just going to press both of them down onto the mat and then press them together. That way I'm sure that everything is flush with the table and it's not going to wobble once everything is attached. Now it's not perfect, but it makes it way less prone to tipping over, and it's a quick and easy way to get a little bit of extra texture. And just like that, episode 6 is finished. So I put together a quick little scene here. You can see in the background the walls make a really nice backdrop for a city. We can also use these for gameplay elements and things like that. Alright, and that is going to be it for today. Thank you everyone for watching. Please hit that like button, subscribe for future content, comment in the comments section, and we will see everyone next episode.